Hello and welcome back to Rule the Game. In this video, I'll give you my short personal review on the game Conspiracy, a game in the Abyss universe by Bruno Cathala and Chevallier. I also recorded a video that will explain to you how the game is played. You'll find the link somewhere up here. Now, Conspiracy is also a part of the Abyss universe, and so it is related to the original Abyss game. If you know the original Abyss game, then you will see that this game here contains the essential mechanism also of the original game, but it's generally simpler to play than the original game is. So while I would say that the original game is something for advanced players, because it can have rather intricate and complicated mechanisms in there, this here, the Conspiracy game, is actually something that you can also play with not beginners, but beginners or people who don't really play that much yet, that you would consider them to be advanced. So people who know how to play, but don't really play games that have more than two mechanisms to it. This also is, of course, for the advanced players. Advanced players will also enjoy this. For experts, it will be a game for in between, because it's not quite as deep as the other games are. Having said this, in my family, where we have two girls, age 8 and 11, we play this quite often, and we are enjoying this quite a bit. It's a game where you still have to think, where you can play some strategy, but it's not so complicated that we always have to think about, well, how does this work now and what has to be done here? Because you only do like one or two things at a time, and everybody understands those. And you can, there's some interaction that you have with other players, because you always check, well, if I do something, will that help the next player? I don't want to help the next player. I only want to help myself. So you try to gauge this, and there's a mechanism in there where you pick up 1 to 3 cards from the deck. But the more cards you pick, yes, you have the better choice, the better selection for yourself. But at the same time, the 2 cards or 1, 2 cards that are left will be left for the next player. They know what they're going to get, and you can't get those cards. So you actually help them. So the question for you is always like, am I really going to take 3 cards? Or do I just go for 1, so that this other person then also has to take a card blindly instead of one that it's open on the table already? And this is what Abyss is based on, that you always kind of have to gauge, to push your luck, take a risk or not take a risk that might help somebody or not. And that's the fun part of it. And it might not work out in the end that your pyramids that you're building here in this game with different cards is really perfect, because there will not be the perfect cards, but that's the normal way of how games work. I personally actually prefer to play the original game. I prefer the additional complexity that you have there, because in the original game you actually add also the factor that, yes, you can get cards that are accumulated that come from the other players from before, but you have to memorize them. Here they're going to be open, so you always see what there is to take, while in the original game they're all face down, so you can actually see what it is. You have to memorize them. And there's some other factors in there, other mechanisms, that with maraes and the pearls that you can buy other cards and so on. You don't have this here. So there's less complexity here. I prefer the full complexity of the original game, but I really think that this is a very good game, because it's also incredibly well balanced. There's really nothing that is a very clear strategy where you start the game and you know exactly, I need to do this and that, and only that way you can actually win. Here, many different ways can actually lead you to win this game. And it's usually also a very close game, at least for most players. There's usually at least one person who's way better, but that's not necessarily because that person just is a better player. Well, could be, but usually it's more about the fact that they were a little more lucky than the others. So there's a luck factor in there. But the luck factor doesn't feel so bad as it can be in other games where you feel like everything is based on luck. This is more strategizing and then get lucky with it and then continue from there. I hope you enjoyed this short review of mine. I hope you enjoy the game if you have it. If you don't have it, you might want to get it. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you back here.